Hi, everybody. It's Thursday, January 6th, 2022. I've started this video 3 times with the wrong month, year, day. So first I said Wednesday, January 6th, then I said Thursday, December 6th, and then one time I said 2021. So, as is this video, it's kind of the theme of revisiting, restarts, all kinds of things. But anyway, happy Thursday, January 6th, 2022. I hope wherever you are in this video finds you well. I don't doubt in this moment in time for a majority of you, you're being challenged in more ways than one. And so I thought I'd speak to that a little bit. So if you watched the last video I posted, then, I spoke a little bit about winter and the water season here in the Northern Hemisphere. And that really we should be going inward and reflecting at this time of year. This is kind of the void between the harvest and the planting season. It's when we look at what we did the past season and, reflect on what we gained from it, what we learned from it, and then also what we lost, and perhaps what didn't work. So that's a general theme we can expect every year around this time. It's a time to rest. It's a time to sleep. It's a time to reflect. It's a time to do less, not more. And as you know, for me, probably over the months and years of those of you who do or don't know me, my goal is to help bring consciousness to the planet in all kinds of ways. Chinese medicine is one of those ways, and acupuncture is one of those ways. But I've had a deep love of astrology for going on 20 years plus, probably more than that. And I have been learning more about my own chart. I was lucky to have one of the most amazing astrologers in my life for the last 20 years. And with her passing, it has forced me to really start to dive in deeper myself and really take all that she taught me and bring it to the next level. So I wouldn't say I'm the most comfortable in this place, but if I know anything about my life, it's never about being comfortable. And that when I'm learning, I do best at learning by teaching others. So I thought, let me just talk about what I'm learning and share it with all of you. So back to this time of year. So, the sun here is literally setting. And we're getting ready for a snowstorm here in New Jersey over the next 24 hours. So I'm hoping some of you get this as that's happening, because maybe it's an opportunity for you to kind of drop into this a little bit and look at it. So let's talk a little astrology. So many people are familiar with Mercury retrograde and retrograde cycles. I usually try to give people the visual of, when you're at a stoplight and you're sitting in the back seat of a car and your car moves forward, but the car next to you doesn't move and it looks like it's going backwards. Well, that's kind of what a retrograde cycle is, at least in my mind. That's how I picture it. So nothing's actually going backwards, but there's this feeling based on relativity and everything else that it's going backwards. So Mercury does that 3 times a year. We'll be going through a Mercury retrograde cycle, I think, starting next week, if I'm not mistaken. But I wanted to talk to you about a different retrograde cycle happening right now through January 29th that started on December 19th, and that's Venus in retrograde. So Venus goes retrograde every 18 months. Venus is, I like to think of as the planet of the heart, planet of love. It's about the more yin aspects of ourselves, our creativity, our relationships, connectivity, things like that. So Venus is in retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. The other thing that's happening, though, is Pluto, sort of the planet of destruction and transformation and death and removing the ego from everything, sort of like deep truth, has been in Capricorn since 2008. So any of those outer planets, they move really slow. And so Pluto's going to be in Capricorn until 2024. The reason I'm bringing that up is while Venus is going retrograde, it's having a few meetings with Pluto. Earlier in December, there was what we call the conjunction. That's when two planets are within a certain degree, usually within 5 degrees, but there's the exacts, when they're within a 1 degree of each other. And they have a particularly profound effect on each other and the energy we experience here. So that was early in December, and again on Christmas Day, after Venus turned around, so to speak, and went retrograde, they had a meeting on December 25th. And they will be meeting up again in the beginning of March. But for this 40-day cycle, Pluto's hanging out pretty close to Venus. And so I wanted to bring that up because in addition to what I was just talking about from a seasonal perspective and this time of sort of death and getting ready to rebirth to the next season, the planets are giving us an opportunity to do the same thing as it relates to our hearts and what's true for us. And we're going to be experiencing that personally, and we're going to be experiencing that collectively, especially with Pluto and Capricorn, just for another couple of years. There's going to be a lot of things kind of coming apart because Pluto's only interested in real, universal truth. And anywhere where there is sort of delusion or ego, it's going to come in and say, sorry, we're taking that down. So for us personally right now, it's an opportunity to go into our hearts. Between the 19th and really up until the 9th is a really good time for us to look at what the problem is within our own hearts, within our own love, our planet of love. What are our emotional patterns, Where might the ego be hanging out in there, running things, and almost making you a slave to it at times? Where have you not completely in your heart surrendered to the power of love? Now, I've used this expression, there's plenty of artists who've talked about the power of love and the love of power, but we are moving from a society built on the love of power to a society built on the power of love. So to me, this retrograde cycle is really, really important for us to do some personal work and to really shed anything within ourselves, in our day-to-day, in our intimate lives, that really is not meant to stick around anymore, that we're really exhausted by and we're done with. So when I think of also Venus retrograde cycles, I think of it as going to the underworld. Going to the underworld without shields, without weapons, and frankly naked, with nothing. And that can be very fear-provoking. It can provoke us in a whole lot of ways. So that might be going on in your intimate personal life, You can look a little bit more particularly at maybe where Capricorn sits in your chart. Those of you that have personal planets in Capricorn, especially at particular degrees, are definitely going to be feeling this. But you can also look at where Venus sits in your chart to get an idea of at least the area of your life that this is really focused on. The other thing you can look at is this retrograde cycle, Venus retrograde cycle, happened in December 2013 going into January 2014. So you may want to take a look at your history and kind of look at what was going on for you around that time and just know a similar pattern is up for review. So take a look at that. The one before that was in January 2006. So you can take a look at that. For me, there's a lot that was going on within personal relationships at those times, particularly with a lot of plans being made about futures that frankly never came to be. So it's interesting to review what were the aspects of those relationships for me that were what was trying to be shown to me then. What was my heart really needing that I needed to break free from those experiences, or what was coming up for me about those relationships that I knew was not true to my heart. Here we go again. So look for yourself. You could just take a look. It doesn't have to be specific to relationships, but it's definitely probably related to some emotional patterns that were going on for you in your life at that time. So that's personally. And there's more to that story that maybe I'll talk about in a future video. I don't want to overwhelm this video because I just want to talk about what's pertinent right now. But the other aspect of that is the collective consciousness. So this is a time when a lot of truth is going to come up from the underworld. Things that have been kind of hidden in the shadows is going to come up. And when that comes up, no differently than it may feel in our personal lives, we may have to make some big decisions about some things. We may have to let go of some ideas we thought the world was. We may realize things that we thought we had trust in, maybe we don't have trust in. People we don't have trust in. And I'm just going to say, January is going to be a bit heavy for a lot of reasons, for that reason. Like Pluto is hanging out around these retrogrades, and Pluto doesn't care about anything about then bringing that truth up and, like I said, letting go of the ego, anything that's been formed through an ego perspective. So it's a really good time to get into your heart. What does your heart want in this life? I made videos at the very beginning of this pandemic, and I tried to give everybody kind of a heads up that these cycles that were coming, we're never going back. We're not going back to anything that we've known. That's the point of these major cycles is transition and change. And I want to prepare you. This is going to be decades of change ahead of us. Major cycles are happening in the planets. And I want to empower you to know that you chose to be here at this time to be a part of it. And it's just a matter of identifying what is your role there. It's a time for us to come into our inner power and the power of our heart versus the power we give things outside of us. The power we give, quote unquote, experts or academics or, don't get me wrong, we need those people to kind of help bring certain things to light. But in a moments of change like this, where it's like shifting ground all the time, you've got to get comfortable in your own truth. And not only that, you really need to honor it. And if you don't, that's fine. I'm just going to give you that heads up that this level of change is not going to stop. And so I want you to get comfortable getting uncomfortable. My whole life, gratefully now, I can appreciate how much I've had to be uncomfortable, and I've had to let go of things over and over and over again. And now I'm recognizing, particularly in these last few weeks, that was for the purpose of being able to guide people through such a mass transformation here on the planet and within ourselves personally. And it's pushing me into places that, I'm uncomfortable with, It makes me extremely vulnerable in a variety of ways. But I have to always go back to, well, what else did I come here for if I don't honor my truth? And this is not something to knock any of you who have valued things like, having lots of money or homes or cars or fashionable items. I'm just saying, if that is at the root of why you do what you do, you're going to lose some things. So a lot of the structures based on that idea are going to be kind of, think about Pluto, plutonium. It's going to come in and blow that up. So I want you to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and letting go and realizing that everything that we're experiencing is for a major transformation of this planet. It's to transform things into a place to make this a more inhabitable place, not just for ourselves and our children, but for all natural things, and that we move into a place of harmony rather than, right, wrong, and staking our ground. It's going to be hard. This is going to be a period of really letting go of aspects of yourself where you believe to be right. So much so that you forego the power of love in your life. I've done this over and over again in personal relationships. I've done this in my career, where there's moments that I've held on to certain things, probably longer than maybe I should have, because I was fearful of taking that next step. And because I was afraid of listening to my heart, because everybody around me was kind of moving, through life on this timeline of career, marriage, children, get your retirement ready. That just never felt right to me. So at some point in time, I don't know how many years ago now, probably 20 at least, that I recognized I'm likely not to live that life. And I got to get comfortable with it. And I have to tell you, I love my life. Even when I'm on the floor, crying and frustrated and feeling completely alone, I am grateful for this experience, because I know that at the end of every one of these experiences, breakthroughs beyond my wildest dreams start to happen. And that is not going to always be necessarily understandable to people outside of ourselves. But you should just be interested in what's going on with you. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry about what other people are saying. Don't worry about other people's tantrums publicly or, inside of their homes. Everybody is going to be going through some deep review. And if they don't, they might get louder. There's also going to be lots of people really hanging on to these old constructs because they've got so much wealth built into it. They've got a lot of power built into it. And so we're gonna see some potentially not so wonderful qualities in people we wouldn't expect. And so I've seen that already in my own life. And I'm trying to just send love to those people, because that's really all it's about, is everybody's going through their own process. And I know how hard it is to let go. I know how hard it is to walk through change, but it's the only thing that is consistently happening on this planet is change. So if you're a person who often says, I don't like change, I resist change, I don't want to change, I'm begging you, for yourself, let that go. Embrace change. Embrace wisdom. Embrace your heart. Let your mind go for a little while. Let your heart step in and inform you, because that's the new leader of this new world. And that's not new. That's not a new idea. We've been hearing it. All you need is love. How many artists have sung this, after having deeply spiritual experiences. Many of you know who Rumi is, the Sufi poet. All of his work from all that time ago is as pertinent today as ever. That's universal truth. It means that regardless of what's going on the planet, there is truth in there. From our own perspective, I want you to embrace that there's multiple truths. I always give the example, if there's a fire going on in a house, and there's someone inside, there's someone outside, behind the house, someone in front of the house, and someone on the sides of the house, the story they're going to give you about that house fire is going to be completely different. So stop challenging people and their truths. Just get interested in your own. All right? So, again, here we are. We're at January 6th. And probably by the 9th, we're going to have a conjunction with the Sun and Venus. So we're kind of going to move out of identifying what the problem is into starting to really heal it. There's another interesting thing happening. Chiron, who's like the wounded healer, again in all of our charts, goes direct at the same time that Venus went retrograde. So it's not only a matter of identifying what we need to transform, it's identifying, those deep wounds that are finally ready to be healed and move into forward motion. So I want to send you my heart. I want to send you my love, especially over these next, 30-ish days. Like I said, there's more going retrograde. January is going to be a bit of a heavy month. And, but when we get to spring, we're going to be seeing a little bit of a shift in energy. But we're in a long cycle. So I want you to think of this as we've maybe gotten through mile 1 of a marathon. I know that sounds horrible, being 2 years into this experience, but I'm telling you, this is just the beginning of a longer cycle, and it's up to you to start choosing where you want to be inside of that and who you want to be. Trust me, at mile 1, you don't want to be resisting the race. You want to be focused on getting to mile 3 and what is required of me to get to mile 3. Because usually once we hit that stride, things start flowing and things get easier. The nature of Capricorn is a lot of hard work. If you know Capricorns in your life, they tend to be known as the workaholics, at least if their sun sign is Capricorn. They tend to be pretty serious as kids, and they lighten up as they age. But they like to get things done and be efficient and create structures. Well, Pluto's coming in and saying, that's fine and all, but those structures and those routines and that work, if it's not coming from the heart, I'm going to blow it up. I don't really care. If you're working harder, from an ego place, I'm going to destroy that. And it's going to be really hard for some of us to have looked at all the time and energy and work we may have put into something for it to have to kind of blow up in our face, or really request of us to make some major changes, whether that's in our personal lives, our career lives, our home lives. And it doesn't always make linear sense or logical sense. Pluto doesn't work that way. So, anyways, back to sending you love. You're probably going to be hearing more from me talking about these kinds of things, because that's what's being asked of me. And I'm really interested in helping all of us bring more structures that focus on universal truth and love and outer world experiences into this experience. As you can see, we've exhausted what man is capable of on its own, and their brains and their academics and their research. Helpful, don't get me wrong, but it's not what should be guiding us right now. So I love you. Hope you're seeing a sunset. My sun here just went down below the clouds, or the horizon. You can see some color still in the clouds. And be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. We're all going through this. Love you.